Us Property Investors, we bring the big names and we have the big fun. And we are here with Anita tonight. It is going to be exciting, and I'm glad I didn't have to say your last name. How do I say your last name, Anita?
Aussie.
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 That was the easy one.
Oi. Yep, I got married the year of the Olympics, 2000 in Sydney. So yeah.
Wow, there you go. I'm not going to forget that now. So how you go? How was your day? How are you going today?
Really good. Laid back, chilled, and really looking forward to tonight and brainstorming with you guys and a bit about myself.
Wow. Yeah, I love that kind of composure because how you going anyway as well, Joe? How's your day, man?
Who doesn't love talking about themselves? That's my favorite topic. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. I often see in the mirror at night. It's like, oh, Jeff, how's your day, man? Going good. No, I don't really do that. But who knows? You never know with me. But yeah. So but Joe, are you buying properties? Like, I want to know. Like, we don't get to talk as much.
Oh, you want a little case study? Last weekend was absolutely mental. I secured one of the better deals that my favorite deal of the month. That's what we'll call it.
Okay.
It was spectacular. It came online on Thursday. I said to the agent, look, I have to buy this thing today or tomorrow. Our cooling off period on our other property is expiring. So we put a little pressure on the agent, right? We had this time pressure or what is it called? Reversing the fear of loss. And I said, look, I'm not going to make it to the open because as soon as this property went to the open, I knew it was going to go for crazy money and it would have just sold crazy. So yeah, tried to purchase it before it went to the open. And on Tuesday, we went to an auction and we tried to buy that before the auction, but it didn't happen. That went for $753,000. 4-bed, 2-bath, exactly the same property, exactly the same, except in just on the other side of the road. And they didn't know that place sold. Anyway, we bought the property for $670,700. Saved my client $80,000, and it went absolutely mental. So that was like negotiating on Friday night at like 10 p.m., just trying to get these contracts exchanged and making it happen before he books in the open for the next day. So it was a cracking deal. Pumped.
Yeah. I just want to know how you were though, Joe. But yeah,
I'm good. Thank you.
No, that's yeah. Man, I'm all about. I mean, you can buy property any day of the week. I mean, But I want to connect. I want to know personally. Yeah, but yeah, great deal. Are we talking Queensland? Are we talking South Australia here? I won't.
South Australia. This one was South Australia in particular. Yeah, absolute cracker.
Good stuff.
Favorite deal of the month.
Yeah, there you go.
What about you, Jeff? How are you, mate?
Yeah, I was today. Like, I feel relaxed now, but today was hectic. Like, because I'm taking next Tuesday off, so I've got a 4-day week this week, a 3-day week next week, and for those business owners out there, time doesn't stop. But for somebody who's still got a gig, you get some sort of time off. Like, you don't have to work 24 hours a day, fine. But I'm going to do some. I'm really good though. I'm excited for this conversation, and the audience.
So you're going to have a break, or you're not going to have a break? What's going to?
Oh man, I don't have a break anyway. I like the typical employee, they do, but I don't know. I don't. If when stuff gets to get done, I just get it done. Like I don't. If I'm gonna make a deadline,
you get it done, mate.
Yeah, what I want. So I want people to throw comments, questions, and if you're watching on YouTube, let us know your thoughts because there's going to be some really kind of awesome kind of sharing from Anita here tonight, and she's been a great member of the community, and the crowd is rolling in. So let's get into quotes of the week. So and to the person of the hour or the 2 hours, however long we go. What is your quote of the week, Anita?
Well, my quote is, there are no mistakes in life, only lessons. There is no such thing as a negative experience, only opportunities to grow, learn, and advance along the road of self-mastery. And this is something that's been very profound in my life. If you practice gratitude for everything that you have, and know that all those challenges that come up, they're actually lessons. And if we can learn from those lessons and not repeat them again in future, well, happy days.
Yeah, that's very profound.
Too.
Very profound, because it's very easy to take the victim mentality and say, you know what, this happened to me and this is, woe is me. But you take it in your stride and say, well, what can I learn from this? Don't let it drag you down.
Yeah, it's kind of akin to you either win or you learn. I like that kind of. That's that's one I like to sort of throw in there. Joe, what's your? Do you know yours, Joe? Or do you need me to go first?
Yeah, I got mine. Mine's from someone that is really inspirational. He's he's had a bit of light shone on him recently. Money and success doesn't change people; they merely amplify what is already there.
Oh, geez.
Will Smith.
Yeah. Other things, yeah. I
That
don't.
was
Yeah,
Will Smith.
interesting. Interesting kind of. Yeah, that's controversial, Joe. Well, not controversial, the quote, but the person. I don't know. I won't share. That's
What's
yeah,
your
but no,
quote, mate?
So mine is life is what happens while you're busy making other plans, which is John Lennon. So he was. Yeah, I think for me that kind of is fitting for this kind of conversation. I'm interested to hear how you actually bought 10 properties, Anita, over the time period, because it's you just sort of people have all these plans, and then you sort of say, if it doesn't work out, is that good or is that bad? It's not good or bad. It's happening, and as long as you're kind of moving forward, that's what it's all about. I think.
Someone in the comments wrote, "I love all that, Anita. Reminds me of Bob Ross. He said, you don't make mistakes, you just have happy little accidents."
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Oh, I made lots of those.
Happy little accidents.
We might unpack one or two during this conversation, but we'll get into introducing the lovely Anita Oze. And I just every time I say that, I want to think Aussie, but we'll get into that after introducing our
quick short break, ad break. The amazing thing with commercial property investing is that in most cases, it's cash flow positive from day one, which means that you can drive those profits towards paying down the debt. There are instances with commercial property investing where you can actually have the property pay itself off over 10 years, which is absolutely crazy. With commercial property, you get massive net yield, so you can expect anywhere between 6 to 10%. And as we've seen in the current boom, these properties not only provide large cash flow, they do certainly grow wildly in value too. Now, with big rewards comes some risk, and this is why you should de-risk your investment as much as possible. And the way you do that is with expert due diligence. And this is why we highly recommend people hire professionals to help you along in your investing journey. Steve Polisi of Polisi Property is one such expert. Being a chartered mechanical and structural engineer in a past life, Steve draws on his analytical and mathematical skills to do that expert due diligence for you. With 6 years experience in the space, Steve has over 1,200 property transactions under his belt. He's the guy you want in your corner, crunching the numbers and finding the best properties in the best locations, along with ensuring that you avoid the mistakes. Steve has actually even written the book on commercial property investing in Australia. And not only is it a bestseller, I believe it to be the most comprehensive in commercial property investing on the market today. He's been generous enough to give us a massive discount for our audience of 50%. So use the code OZPROP, click the link below, get a copy today, and start learning and getting on your commercial property investing journey.
There we go. I actually had the wrong thing copied, so I had to quickly scramble. But yeah, no, that was good on Steve. I still got to finish reading that book for the second time. But no, there's so many people in the comments. It's just exciting. They throw what do you want to know? And Chris Sizer, and he's a fellow Taswegian. That is the thing. I love that word, Taswegian. How cool is that? But
and Russian from Hobart.
Is it Tasmartian? Is it?
Taswegian and a Hobartian.
Hobartian. Oh, geez. There you go. I'm learning new things every day. So,
hi, Chris.
Yeah. So in you are the person, you've been a property investor and renovator for 20 years, and you've personally negotiated and bought 10 of your own properties, renovated 6 of them. So you've done interior design and experience in real estate as well. And you've got this process called consult, inspect, and connect. So that's pretty snappy. And what that is, you provide cosmetic reno inspection of your properties, and you look at open homes, but you've also got a diploma of remedial massage, and you've got a diploma of interior design. Is there anything you haven't done? Like, just tell, I don't know, I'm just amazed. Where do you find time?
That's a good question, but I love to learn. I'm like a sponge. It's just like anything that's out there, I like to learn. And from a very young age, was always interested in, like in high school, I studied human biology and law and accounting. And, I guess all those things over the years, I just developed on those. So after I left school, I started with hospitality. And so, I love customer service and sales and serving people, I guess. Ultimately, that's what we do in real estate. If we're in sales, we're serving people, how can I help you? And I guess predominantly that's the question I'm always asking, how can I help you? Because I get a thrill out of seeing someone else succeed, even if it's one little nugget of information I can give them, then that makes me feel good.
That's what it's all about. Well, I'm super excited to have you on because we have like people from all different walks of life, and you're a property investor through and through. You've been buying for 20 plus years, and you've just kept at it. So I'm super pumped for this one. So can you tell us how did you get into property? Like how did it come onto your radar?
Look, to tell the truth, I was born into property. My dad was a builder. So, both my parents were Italian. He immigrated to Australia. He was one of the blokes who was helping to fix the Tasman Bridge when it came down in 1974. And, he bought many thousands of square meters of land and built, oh gosh, I don't know, maybe 30 units in total. Like this is all in the Hobart area, which is where I grew up. But ironically, I guess back in those days, you didn't really talk about money or you didn't share things with other people. So I can't say I actually learnt anything directly from my parents. All I grew up was with, back in those days, they didn't really have property managers. I'm going back 30, 40 years ago. Dad would knock on every single unit door and go collect the rent. And Mum was the person who advertised in the newspaper and did all the leases and showed people through and then ended up doing the cleaning when they vacated. And me being child labour and with the kids, we were there cleaning the units, doing the bond clean and mowing the lawn, and everyone pitched in. That was just the way it was.
So the unit, your dad built the units and then you kept all of the units yourself, or just managed sold them and then managed them?
For a big stage there, yeah. So initially he built 8 units and then he sold them. He built our home that had 3 units attached. He built another block of, I think it was 11 units, and then did an extension of another 8 units. He kept them for several years until I was probably, I think I was about 16 or so when they sold them. And that's actually a really sad story. My biggest regret that they did was when Mum was tired, managing nearly 20 units on her own and the cleaning and the advertising and all of that. And my dad, being the control freak he was, didn't want to give it to a property manager and other people to manage. So they decided they would sell it. But the people who came along to buy it, they said, well, we'll buy it if you stratum title the block of units, because they were all in one title. So my parents
used to strata title. Oh.
And I asked my mum, I said, why the hell did you do that and not sell them yourself then if you did all the hard work of stratum titling? And she said, I don't know, we just didn't. So they sold it, all stratum titled, but for the benefit, they got to keep a couple of the units in the basement, and that as part of the deal.
Wow. And during, I know that over the past, 20 years, property has exploded and gone absolutely mental. But before then, during your parents' time, was property investing a fruitful venture?
Very few did it. It was just the typical, if I can say, Italians and Greeks, the ones who had the extra bit of pocket money, I guess, because back then you didn't really have rich people. I think most people were generally of a similar income. So to have an investment property was a real privilege, but I don't really know, but the difference between that European mindset. But my dad learned from a very early age that there is a power of leverage, power of using other people's money. So back then you couldn't get a loan of 80 or 90%. It was unheard of. It was usually about 50%. So you can sleep at night knowing that, you can still afford to pay the mortgage. But it was that power of leverage that enabled him to just keep on buying and buying.
Was it the Greek show? Who was that? Archimedes' lever? Was that the Italian? I was just thinking, because when you talk about leverage, and I'm interested to know. So your dad sort of, this was all in sort of around the Hobart area, was it? We'll get into your story as well, of course.
Yeah, all in Hobart. He was going to go interstate, but I guess just with family and that didn't happen. So it was all in Hobart. And we only just recently sold a whole lot of it. Just a couple of years.
What was Hobart like? Sort of was this? Are we talking sort of 1980s, 1990s? What sort of era are we talking in Hobart? And what was Hobart like at the time? And I'm just curious.
Well, I'm a 73 baby, so, you do the maths. Hobart was beautiful. Definitely, I think it's a fantastic place for kids to grow up, very wholesome living, fresh air, the fruit trees in the backyard, all of that. People are friendly. But I think when you get to about teenage age, there's not a whole lot to do and not a lot of opportunities. And that's when sometimes some kids stray a little bit, might start getting into a bit of the weed, which is quite common down there, or at least back in that time, if you didn't drink, you were smoking bongs and whatever else. Sorry, that's the way it was.
I think that's the first time bongs has ever been said on the podcast.
What about the what about the property kind of space? What was Hobart like back then? Because I don't know I know the history. I know some of the history of Sydney, and I've got an idea of sort of somewhat Melbourne. And
what do you mean? Give us an example, Jeff. What are you talking about?
Well, I don't know. What were property price? Was property a big kind of, because in Sydney, I just there was always in the sort of 70s and 80s, you had sort of the expansion out into the western suburbs, and you had a selling off of a whole bunch of land, and that sort of then was a great opportunity. Was that what did the city of Hobart? It's okay. We'll sort of, otherwise it'll turn into a whole different conversation. Let's ask a different question. So tell us about your first investment. Tell us about your first property purchase and talk us through that. Joe, have you got the slides really?
All right. Well, the first property purchase was in Sydney because when I was 23, I moved to Sydney, was there for a few years, met my hubby. We lived in the garage literally for 2 years. But again, the power of two incomes means you can save one and spend one. And so we saved up a deposit really quickly. And then we bought a 2-bedroom unit in Carring, which is in the southern suburbs of Sydney. And we were living in Botany Hillsdale area, if anyone knows Sydney, but he was working for a tree company at the time. And he said, why don't you look south? It's really nice down there. And I did, and we had very little money, we were poor as, and so we managed to scrape up enough money to buy this unit. But honestly, I knew nothing about buying property. We were in the middle of buying the property, and the solicitor said to us, we need another $10,000 because you've got stamp duty in that to pay for. And it's like, what's stamp duty? It's like, no idea. So, I called my mum up and I said, Mum, we're in trouble. I'm short some money. Can you lend it to us? And lucky for us, she did. And, I paid her back gradually over the time. But so that unit, it was the worst unit you could buy, I guess. It was at the front of a complex of 4 towers opposite the 7-Eleven on the corner of Willarong Road and the Kingsway. So if anyone knows,
Joe probably knows it.
Yeah, I've driven past it. I've been in it. No, I haven't.
Sunrise Place by memory. If I
think I'm sharing. Is that hubby?
That's hubby. That's George.
Look at that. Go, George.
So
that's just a stock. Actually, hang on. A question is this good looking back in the day? This is not needing a reno, or is this needing a reno? This type of layout?
That's needing the reno. So that's Kermit the Frog green bench tops and timber cupboards from the 70s or whatever. So we DIY'd everything. We pulled that out, put in a new kitchen. We didn't do the bathroom. We painted. We had bright purple and yellow walls, our 2 favourite colours, and it was just beautiful.
Bright purple and...
Yeah. Alternate.
Did you have any after photos of what it looked like post reno, or you didn't?
The one that's under the kitchen, that's post reno. So I know the photos are really small. Sorry, but it was like a beach timber cupboard with black bench tops. So back then, I didn't think to take many photos. My boo-boo.
No, that's all right. It's just funny to think about the time before we had these phones in our pockets. Because I remember those sort of times where you walk around with a disposable camera and you wind it up, and then that was crazy times. But yeah, this is interesting because I'd hate to wonder what this property is worth now. What was the purpose or what was the reason for selling? Out of interest, did you have to sell or?
We kind of had to sell. So, we bought it. That was our first property. I got pregnant 4 years later, and not like most people who, when you're pregnant, you would start to be saving money. That's when I turned around to my husband and said, we need to buy another property because I'm not going to be working. So we need to try and find another way to make money. So that's when we bought the second property. And actually, no, I take that back. The second property we bought after 2 years because we'd worked so hard and made enough money. We bought the second property. And then it's when I got pregnant that we ended up selling both of them and we bought the next one. But we basically had to. I tried going to the bank to see if we could keep it. And then, you know,
are you telling me back in the day, lending was really hard?
Oh, yeah, we were paying, I think, 8% back then. So, and, you know, whilst it doesn't seem a lot on a $200,000 loan, that was tough going.
Oh, we got a good question that's just popped up here. And obviously you don't feel free not to answer it, but how much was your household combined income back in 2001? Because that's interesting, because if you're purchasing a property for 240,000,
whatever it is,
Yeah,
Okay.
combined was about 40. I think we're earning on average about 20,000 each.
right? Okay.
So it wasn't a lot. And we both had 2 jobs. I worked full time, plus I worked waitressing at the local RSL 3 nights a week. Hubby worked with trees and then he worked at the local nursery on the weekends. So we hustled hard. And at the same time, we started our own business as tree lockers. And actually, before my daughter was born, we went to Europe. So, you know, we got to enjoy ourselves a bit, but damn, we worked hard.
Yeah. Okay. So that's 6 times income. So what was the address of this one?
Oh, gosh, now you're testing me.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought you said it.
168. I think it was 168 Willarong Road.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, cool. So then you went from, sorry, I'm skipping around. I don't mean to skip around. It's just very sensitive.
Have you used
2000.
So that first unit, you know, I bought at a discount, which was really good. And so that gave us that bit of money to spend on the renovations. And so when we bought the second one, there was a bit of an equity uplift. And this place in Tassie, we essentially bought it because back in the day, you used to be able to claim the cost of, transport to go inspect your property.
Yes.
So I kind of figured, I come from Tasmania. Wouldn't it be cool if my trips to Tassie to go home were tax deductible? So let's buy a property in Tassie. That was the reason, literally. So
wow, fantastic. Yeah, that's great. They only recently changed that, recently, probably 10 years ago.
Yeah, about 4 or 5 years ago.
3 or 4. Yeah, 4 or 5 years ago.
No, it wasn't 3 or 4. No, it must be maybe 6. Anyway, sorry, semantics.
5 years and 9 months.
But what a time to be alive. Jump on a plane, it's tax deductible. Rent a car, tax deductible. Yeah. Everything.
At that time, though, I couldn't go home. So I rang up my dad and I said, you know, because he was a builder, I figured he knew what he was looking for. I said, if I go find the properties on the computer, you know, because I've got internet, can you go inspect them for me? So I think he probably looked at 4 and, you know, they were houses or townhouses that I was looking for. I didn't want units. And this was a 2-bedroom townhouse in Dynnyrne, which is, you know, if anyone knows Hobart, Sandy Bay is quite affluent, but Dynnyrne is like up the hill.
Yeah, I lived in Tasmania for a number of years. I've never heard of Dynnyrne. Never heard of it.
The median house price there now is $1 million.
Wow. Okay.
So, I mean, it says the units, I'm just looking at it now, because it's...
So one of the things that's kind of jumping out to me is you paid a 20% deposit using equity from the carrying bar unit. So how did you, in 2003, there wasn't much information. I don't even think the internet, well, there was a bit of internet, but how did you learn about equity? Because I hear a lot of people saying we didn't know anything about equity, so we just paid cash. How did you kind of find out and get educated about it?
Actually, to tell the truth, I don't even know if, we must have used equity. I was thinking maybe we saved up the cash. I don't know. Again, I think it's a case of learning as you go. If you have a question, ask the right people. And, you know, you go to the bank and you say, well, hey, my house went up in value. I'd like to buy another house. Is that possible? And I guess it's then the bank, you know, whoever the broker is, who says, well, let's have a look at what you've got and what loan you've got, and maybe you can. So I think even without understanding the actual true power of equity, if you're asking the right questions, you learn along the way.
Yeah,
So-
the broker industry would have only been very fledgling back in 2003. I mean, of course, the broking's been around for probably 20 to 25 years, but I think the vast majority of people would have gone down to the local bank branch and said,
Yeah.
"Hey, look, can I?" Yeah, because you would have had a relationship probably with your local bank manager. But yeah, it's interesting, and just thinking about that, 20% is only $40,000. I know that's sort of, but imagine doing that on 600K. That's 20% is 120,000. So it's it blows my mind. There's the numbers here, it's go sorry.
No, it's a great point. So what was the lesson here? Careful of possible building maintenance on older complexes. Also, equity released allows you to build a portfolio and bigger. Okay.
Yeah, well, so I guess that's the point about equity releases. But when we bought the property, I didn't do a build and pest inspection. My dad, I thought, did a thorough job. What he did miss, though, that there was a big retaining wall within the complex that had a crack in it. And so a year later, they had to get an engineer to redo the wall. And as a consequence, all the owners in that body corporate had to contribute to do the new fence. So, that was $3,500, which when, counting dollars and don't have a lot of return, that was a really big blow. But I didn't know about property cycles back then, and the property went up in value, so it kind of offset.
One big thing is always get a strata report. So anyone that's like, oh, you know what, I don't want to spend the extra $200 and $300. We just found an amazing property, purchased it, went under contract of it, and then strata said it needed like $150,000 engineering, concrete slab, everything. Otherwise, if you don't have that report, you never hear about that stuff. But I guess back in the day again, Anita, they probably didn't have strata reports and those type of things. You'd have to go into like an office of somebody and try and cobble it all together. Like they're not going to email it to you.
I'd have hard copies of stuff probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't remember because we are going back like 19, 20 years. So I don't remember the details of what we did or didn't do, but yeah.
Of course. But that's a good lesson, right? And also the stuff that you were just talking about is stuff that doesn't add value to the property. Like if it was like, oh, it needs a new render for whatever reason, this wouldn't need a new render, but that would make the place, that would bring it up in value. But retaining walls add no value because it's just fixing a retaining wall. So it's just dead money going to nothing.
That's it. But lucky for us, we didn't have to do anything to the unit inside. We held it for, I think it was 3 years, and, we sold it and we made a nice little profit. So what we did is we took the profit from that unit and the profit that we'd made on the Carringba unit, put them together, and then got a new loan. So then we could buy our house, which was in Sutherland.
It's interesting to see that so you bought a unit in 2001 in roughly Carringba, Sutherland, neighbouring suburbs. I mean, pretty right next door to each other, I'd say. So you bought a unit there for 200,000, I think it was, or 220, whatever it was. And then 5 years later, there was houses there for 600. So was there? I think there was a decent sort of growth in between. So the Sydney Olympics created a bit of a boom in Sydney, from my understanding, and then it sort of stagnated a little bit for a couple of years after that, didn't it? But yeah, it was up.
Yeah, this was quite a hot market looking at the house. Like I think I probably looked at 20 properties, and the challenge we had when we were looking for a house is because we had a tree lopping business, my husband had a big truck. So when you have a truck, you need to park it off street. And so I had the challenge of trying to find a house that had a big enough driveway or side access to accommodate a truck. And so this house actually kind of fit the bill, and it was a nice little house. It had really good energy about it. And but then when we did the build and pest report, we discovered that there was some issues with cracked sewerage, pipe under the house, and some leaking in that. So, here I was, discount off the contract, off the advertised price, but then I got an extra big discount with the build and pest. So from 620 down to 572, it's not a bad discount.
$50,000 off. Happy days.
Talk us through that. I think you're going to go anyway, but talk us through that process, because how did you go and say, okay, here's the damage? How did the conversation go? I know this is 15, 16, actually it's 20, no, sorry, it's 18 years ago. Oh, sorry, 16 years ago. Yeah,
We don't do public math, Jeff.
Yeah, I like public maths. But what do you remember of that negotiation? How did it go?
I still follow the same method today. It's like when a building and pest inspection comes up with a report, I look at what the damage is.
Yep.
I estimate how much it is. So maybe I need to speak to the inspector, or I need to make some phone calls of different trades and get an estimate. And then, I'm not such a cheeky person that I'm going to ask for the full discount, but I sort of say, well, hang on, can we go halves? Because, yeah, it's an old house, but there's a lot of damage here that we didn't know about. Now, little known to them, I was planning on ripping the bathroom out straight away anyway. But the fact that I managed to negotiate, an extra, $28,000 off, because it was considerable damage and termite damage in the roof and that. But we were planning on doing work to the house. It didn't bother me. Even if I did it in 5 or 6 years' time, it's like, well, so what? The house isn't falling down. It's all previous damage. As long as there's no live termites today, the house is good. I love it. It's got good bones. So buy it anyway.
Yeah. And then that's what gives you the negotiation power. You've been able to do that because you had that report in your hand and said, first home buyers are not going to like this report. If you don't accept my offer of, $50,000 less, the first home buyer is going to come here and just run away, and you're never going to get a sale. So you better just take my offer. And then look what happens. Here we go.
And that house was actually on the market for nearly a year. I think because they started on the market quite high at 700, because it was a buoyant market. But I think they missed out because of some issues. And so they had to keep dropping the price. And I guess I was just the right person at the right time.
So did you deliver?
Sorry, go, Jeff.
I was going to know, did you deliberately sort of seek out the house? You sort of say, oh, look, this one's a challenge. This is a problem. Or wasn't really that much deliberate action to it? Yeah. How did you go about?
No, look, the reality was we didn't have much of a budget. I mean, $600,000 is a really low budget at that time to buy a half decent house that had space, and especially for the land value that we needed. We needed a big block. So I knew that whatever house I looked at was going to need work. So a lot of the, some of the properties in Kirrawee and that, they were fibre board, with asbestos or, things like that. So everything would have needed work. So the fact that this was brick and rendered and had a nice side yard and, I could see the potential. Like whenever I buy anything, I really don't care what it looks like today. It's like, do I see the potential to give it an uplift? It doesn't matter how long it takes. And I guess this house fit that bill.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. So these photos, the one in the middle there, that's the kitchen. Is that after the renovation that you guys did?
Yeah, that's right. So they had actually put in a relatively new kitchen, but they put the cooktop in the middle of the room with this big canopy, and it just made it feel really dark and
smallish, probably
crowded. And in any one location, it didn't actually have much bench space. So we didn't renovate it until probably about 6 or 7 years later, because we didn't have a lot of money, so we just did one thing at a time. But there we had double cabinets, so the island is pretty much the size of a double bed, which was fantastic. So I like making my pizza and pasta and rolling everything out, so it's good.
Yeah, granite bench top makes a big chopping board.
Yeah, that's right. So and I knew a good kitchen company, so it was all good.
Worked out nicely. So you've got lessons learned. What were some of the lessons, the key takeaways from this session?
Look, one thing that a lot of people forget is the cost of the outside of the house, the landscaping. And this house, we spent, about 130,000, but that was probably about 70 on the inside and 80 on the outside. And it still didn't look, I think when you do things in sections and patch up jobs of something else and not actually completely starting with a blank canvas, you're really just replacing, old with new, but just the same, the same mess, if you want to call it that. So it was an awkward shaped block of land, so it just made it hard. But by the time we did new retaining walls and new concreting and new plants and the new deck and
But you were living here, right? This is your principal place of residence, was it?
This is our home. So you don't mind because you get the
Yeah.
benefit of it, but still it sucks the budget dry.
With your investor hat on, it hurts a little bit.
Yeah,
So
and-
you sold it $1 million in 2015. What would that be worth now?
Look, at the time, we thought it should have sold for 1.1, and this is where the market is finicky, because just when we put the house on, the market went down for about 3 months. Like, I was upset with my agent saying, you told me I could get 1.1. I know I could get 1.1, but the market went down. And he said, I'm sorry, everyone's screaming at me, but that's just what happened. And that's the thing with the Sydney market. It does that. It has little dips. And we just happened to sell at the wrong time.
I don't know necessarily. I mean, yeah, you might have. I'm just looking at the median house price in Sutherland, and it basically,
It was a good price still.
yeah, the median in 2020 was 1.1, and
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, it's gone up, of course, to 1.4 million now. But yeah, I don't.
Oh,
Yeah, I think you
For
Don't
years,
tell
it's gone up 400,000. Jesus.
yeah.
What made you sell this one? Like, why? What made you decide? You know what, we're going to sell it?
Well, at first we had looked at putting a granny flat on it because we had this big side yard, but with the rules of setbacks for granny flats, we wouldn't have been able to put the whole 60 square meters. So we kind of canned that idea. And, we'd been in business like as tree lopper for 13 years, and hubby was getting tired, and friend had an accident, and I was quite sick at the time, and my sister and my brother-in-law both had cancer, and it was a really bad time.
Yeah,
So
right.
we just thought, we went to Europe, work hard. We went to Europe for a month or so, took the kids to visit the family and that. And when we came back, it was like, we need a change. This stress is killing us. And there was actually my accountant, his assistant was a broker. And one of the things I was trying to do was buy an investment property in Queensland as a waterfront, which is something my property mentor had stuck in my head. It's like, why don't you buy that? And I couldn't buy it as an investment. But then she said, why don't you do a security swap and move up to Queensland and buy yourself a waterfront? And it was just a whole concept I hadn't considered, but I just thought, why not? And so I said to George, all right, do you want to close the business? We'll pack up and we'll move to the Gold Coast. And he said, yeah. And that's what we did.
So can you explain security swap?
Sure. So what happens is you have a house, and that is security on the loan. So let's just say you've got a $1 million house and you've got a loan of $800,000. So what you can do is, instead of actually closing your loan and reapplying for a new one, if you can organise a simultaneous settlement, which is challenging, and I can tell you doing it interstate is even more challenging, is you can buy another house at either the same or higher value as long as the loan remains the same. So what we did is we sold that house for $1 million, or actually even less. We bought a house in the Gold Coast for $850,000, but the loan we had on the house in Sutherland was quite low. It was only $656,000. So we just pulled that $656,000 over to the new. I hope I made sense. So basically, you're just changing the security, but not closing the loan.
You're not selling. So the banks just prefer that because then they just stay with you. Nothing really changes the accounts. It's just changing the titles over to another property.
They don't lose a customer, basically.
Right, they've still got security. They're happy. You're still paying the debt. So you've got to prove that you've still got your income going on and things like that. So it's a great way, and you save a lot of money because you're not paying new establishment fees and things like that.
Yeah, Jeff, does this happen often, like this day and age in the brokers?
I as a broker, that didn't happen. I mean, it sort of got discussed as a bridging kind of finance. Bridging finance is different to substitution of security, but I imagine it would happen with guarantors, because where there's a guarantee on a property and the guarantor decides to sell their property, they would then probably need to pick, if they go and buy somewhere else, there'd be a substitution of security in that situation. I'm just reading up a little bit about it now, and it says here, in some circumstances, a new home loan application may be required. So it doesn't say in all circumstances there may not be. You may not even need to necessarily, but obviously speak to your broker and all that stuff. But that's a quirk. It's an interesting kind of thing. Because
and not all banks offer it. We were with Macquarie at the time, and it was something that Macquarie did offer. So it was, just a case of right place, right time, right package. I made it happen.
Yeah, happy days. So you're a little obsessed with this town here, a town I've never heard of.
Dynnyrne. It's just outside of Hobart, Joe. I mean, I've never heard of it either.
I've probably driven through it. But
what happened was when my dad went shopping for the other Dynnyrne unit, it kind of pricked his ear up, and he thought, I'll go buy a house. And so he found this house at the same time that he helped us buy ours. But then 4 years later, in 2008, he knew that we'd just sold the other one, and I was actually looking to buy a unit in Sydney at the time. And he said, I kind of got myself in a bit of trouble. I've gone and signed a contract to purchase another property, so I really have to sell this quick. Can you buy it from me? And it's like, I didn't want to. I had other things in mind. But he said, look, I'll give you a discount. It's like, yeah, sure. So anyway, we got it valued. I never looked at the property again. I trusted my dad, bought the property, and let's just say my lesson from this is never mix business with family. So the place was a bit of a bomb. Bad tenants, they ended up leaving, a big mess, syringes, whatever, So, it wasn't great.
Wow. Did you have a property? Was a property manager? I mean, I take it you had a property, or were you inspecting? Were you self-managing?
Sorry.
No.
I was self-managing at the beginning until that tenant left, and that's when it was like, oh God, the issues we had with the insurance company, trying to create ledgers to, show the proof and lease and things like that. So after we got rid of those tenants, I gave it to a property manager, and, I spent quite a bit of money, giving it a paint, a new carpet and all those things. And one of the challenging things is with insurance, and I don't know if people know this, is they only cover for malicious damage. Now, these tenants had cigarette burns on the carpet. They had lots of holes in the wall, but they weren't big holes. They were little holes. And from the insurance company's point of view, they call this wear and tear. It's accidental. It's not malicious. So there was about $10,000 worth of damage, and they only covered $3.5. So it was a real eye-opener to the way that insurance works. And
are there can I ask, I don't know if you know this, but are there companies are there better landlord insurance companies like it? I don't know. I'm just going to throw a name out there, like a Terrace or an EBM. Are they better than your stock standard sort of, or you don't know that, Anita?
Look, quite possibly. I've worked with a couple of different insurance companies, but I guess it just depends on the scope of what the damage is. So, is a cigarette burn accidental? Or,
no.
Because they're fagging away sitting on the couch and it accidentally dropped? Or, is it deliberate that they, put it out on the carpet? It's quite ambiguous.
Yeah. Read your PDSs, people, product disclosure statements. Understand what malicious versus accidental means.
There we go.
That's right.
So key takeaway from this one, we covered it. Don't mix business and family.
Yeah. So that house, we ended up selling that simply because, this is when I started to learn that there's a thing called a property clock. And I'd bought that property at the height of the Hobart market. And after 4 years, we were on fixed interest. We came out of fixed interest. And then the banks wouldn't let us go to interest-only loan. They made us go to interest and principal, and we couldn't afford to keep it. And it hadn't gone up in value. And it was just like, our money was tied up. And it was like a noose around our neck. So I just bit the bullet and I thought, well, we'll sell it. And I had a good gut feeling about the Sydney market going up at that time. So this was 2012. And so we sold the property and, we took a loss. But I bought this place in Sutherland.
You love getting a discount, don't you? How do you do this? Because every deal that I've looked at so far is like 20, 30, 50 grand off.
Yeah,
and
because
again,
that was when the Sydney market was starting to get, I wouldn't say super heated, but it was starting to get it. There was a bit of steam building up in the market at that time.
Well, at that time, there was, I can't remember the details, but there was some government incentives, I think, for first home buyers to be buying into units. So I was competing against them at the time. But this particular unit was old. It was, the kind of unit that no one wants to live in. And most people in those days didn't know about renovations or didn't want to do a renovation. They wanted the pretty place when they move in.
The block was started.
Not much has changed.
Not much has changed. I had to go to the agent about 3 times and say, hey, I want this place. So I ended up, negotiating down to 377,500, so off the 400. And back in those days, and we were with the ANZ, they lent us 105% of the purchase price because we did cross-securitize. I didn't know about those things back then. I just thought, give us more money.
Yeah, okay. So what was the negatives of doing that for you during your journey?
Nothing.
Cross-security.
It got us a property. So I'm all for doing cross-security if that is what you have to do to just get yourself over the line, because then you can refinance down the track once you build a bit of equity. So when people say don't do it, well, generally speaking, you can't build a portfolio. So we actually got stuck on this property by doing it. But that property was our best performer because it went up nearly $200,000 in 3 years.
So I just step in there a little bit and say, and of course, speak to your broker. You're not financial advice, folks. The challenge with cross securitization, and you need to be careful anyway, because you got the all monies clause in a lot of loans contracts. So even because you can actually ask the lender to say, look, I want to keep these securities separate. I don't want them. You can, if you don't ask them though, they will cross it. If you just get 2 loans the same bank, they'll very likely automatically cross them. I'm not saying one way or the other is better, but I'm just saying there are disadvantages. Disadvantages, if you buy a property right now and there's a drop of say 10% or 15%, and then you've got another property you've used to secure it, they'll then sort of consider those assets together. So then and then if you've got one that had 20 or 30% equity or whatever, and then there's one that's now worth 10% less, then some of your equity is going to be sort of eaten up there, and it may prevent you from releasing equity on the property that had the 20 or 30%. So that's probably one of the challenges. But yeah, it seems like it worked okay for you though, Anita.
Look, at the time it got us over the line, and because I bought this property cheap and they lent us the extra money to fund the reno, because they said to us, how much is a reno? Because I wanted to put a new kitchen in. It was a horrible kitchen. And I said, I need an extra, 20,000. So they gave it to me. So back in those days, you could still negotiate contract clauses. So we got early access to the property so we could measure up for quotes. Wow. And then the day after we got keys, ripped out the kitchen, the carpet, did a 3-day renovation blitz with, carpet, blinds, paint, light fitting.
That's a big 3 days.
3 days. 3 days. It was super awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But there were so many properties that were bought as investment properties at the time. There was an oversupply of rentals, and I couldn't rent it out for 4 weeks. So here we were busting ourselves.
Didn't have to go so far.
We didn't have to go so fast. But, everyone was saying, don't put a new kitchen in. And one thing for me when I renovate is I always think about, would I live in that property myself? And if I wouldn't use that kitchen, how would I expect a tenant to use it? And so I believed it was worth putting in a new kitchen. The bathroom was still reasonable, and it gave us an extra $20 in rent, which wasn't a lot, but it made it more desirable to get a a tenant. And, you know, that was really important for me at the time and still is.
Yeah, okay. You've got here managing agent after a year, very dodgy. So had to change agents. What happened there? There's a story behind that.
Watch your PMs. What happened was the property manager we had, by accident, don't ask me how, sent me through the entry condition report for the new tenant, because the first tenant left after 12 months. I took a look at it and realised, hang on, this is the same entry report from the first tenant.
Oh.
And I rang them and I said, why did you send this to me? And it's like, oh, that was an accident. It shouldn't have gone to you. And I said, but it's exactly the same. And it's like, oh, no, it's not. And I said, yes, it is. I said, I want to look at the property. And there were so many issues. And it's like, you didn't even bother to do an exit report when the tenant left. And you've just gone and done another report saying it's the same thing. So it was an absolute sham. And I pulled them up and spoke to the principal, and he defended his PMs. And I thought, that's it, you're sacked. So I went to another one.
Yeah. Okay. And what's the process? I don't know if you've done it recently, of changing property managers. Like, is that an easy thing? Is it something that just works, or I don't know? What's it look like?
My understanding is you need to give your existing property manager 30 days notice that you wish to exit their services and go to someone else. And that's where the new property manager contacts them, asks them for all the files and whatnot, and they take over. So it's a relatively simple process. It's just when you've got disgruntled managers, they can be quite painful and make it hard for the new ones. But
it's one of those things, because I was talking to a property manager about this before, and she's like, the amount of times that I'm dealing with of landlords that think they have to wait till the next lease renewal. It's like, no, you can change property managers whenever you like. You just need to give 30 or 60-day notices depending on the contract that you've signed, but you can actually just change them whenever you want.
That's what the lease agreement or the managing agreement says.
Yeah, but it doesn't have anything to do with the lease that you signed with the tenant, because they just take over that lease.
Exactly.
So it's a good point. And it's great that you were able to just, sack them pretty much. They didn't do the rights. It's ridiculous. So sorry, go, Jeff.
I was just saying, it's interesting when I did it, I didn't even think about having to wait. I just said, I want to change. And I called up the new manager, and the new manager took through the whole process. I didn't even speak. I didn't even tell the old manager. I didn't even tell the old manager I was changing, because I thought, I'm going to have a conversation. I'm going to have a conversation with this person. He's going to say, well, he's going to tell me all the reasons. They're going to tell me all the reasons I need to stay with them. I'm like, well, I've already made my mind up. I don't need to, I felt a little bad doing it that way, but it's like, well, this person hasn't sort of done as well. I gave them enough sort of warnings.
Good point.
Yeah. But anyway,
that's a good point. What were the lessons learned of this one, Anita?
Well, I guess at the time there wasn't much of a lesson other than the fact that, you can do a really quick reno and get a good uplift in value. And I guess, like with anything in property, there's 5 ways to make money. It's about timing the market, and I timed this property beautifully. It's time in the market. So, we held it for 3 years in quite a good peak. It's buying at discount, which I do to every property, so I'm making money there. It's the leverage of other people's money. So it's like, how do you use the bank's money to your advantage? And then it's about adding value. And that's what I've done to pretty much all my properties, is adding value. So when you have a combination of those 5 things all working together, you have a really good outcome. So that was a great property. We never had problems with the tenants. And when I bought that property, it was very specific to buying Sutherland, not because I lived there, but if anyone knows Sutherland, it's the suburb where 2 train lines cross. So what it means is the train that goes down south to Wollongong goes through Sutherland, but also the train that goes through to Cronulla goes through Sutherland. So if you work in the city, you've got the benefit of 2 trains that's going to take you to the city and back. And so when I was looking, if rather than Sutherland, I was to go to Kirrawee or Cronulla, Sutherland to me seemed like a better option for a tenant. Thinking like a tenant, what do they want?
Interesting. Great way to look at it. Fantastic. Okay, what have we? Oh, now we're going to a villa in the south of Toowoomba. What's going on here?
So that place in Sutherland was the place that I bought on my own. And then just after that, I started to get sick. My husband said, I need to go see Arnold Schwarzenegger. He came to Australia at the time and he wanted to meet him. He was just absolutely adored Arnold. So he did. And Arnold was here as part of a big financial summit run by a guy named Jamie McIntyre, who you might know as Young Australia of the Year. And anyway, George went to this financial summit thing and he came back and he said, oh my God, you know, I loved meeting Arnold, but I learned about money and there was all these people in suits and, you know, I want to be a millionaire like them. He said, work out how to do it. And it's just like, okay.
Just click your fingers. Done.
Let's get it rolling. Well, to be fair, Arnold was a millionaire at 23 and it had nothing to do with acting or anything. He built a construction business, which is very similar to what George did, right? George built a tree lopping business and then he bought real estate and guess what George did? So he's following a similar path. Was George ripped?
He was. And that's why, because he was a bodybuilder for so many years, that's why he admired Arnold. So, but, you know, George's attitude was, well, I'm a foreigner to this country. He was from Hungary, so he came as an immigrant here. He said, you came from this country. You should know how things work here, so you work it out. And this whole property investment journey was all me. Like my husband, out of the 10 properties, it was only looked at 2. He just signs the bottom line. So he was the shares guy and I was the property person. So in Toowoomba
in 2013, that's quite a regional kind of location. Was that like a risk or what were your thoughts on Toowoomba?
So it says purchase from PRE, which I can only assume is positive real estate. Is that where we're...
That's right. So at that time, I started going to a bucket load of seminars and reading books and whatever. Not many places aligned with me, but then Positive Real Estate had their seminar. And at the time, because of the property in Sutherland, I went to 4 different brokers and banks to try and lend money, and no one would give us money. And it was like, I need to buy another property. I know we can afford it. We had lots of equity in the house, but they wouldn't let us have it. So when I went to the PRE meeting, they said, look, let's talk to our broker. If he can refinance things for you so you could buy another property, would you do it and join with us? And I said, yes. Anyway, the guy was absolutely brilliant. And he did. He said, trust me and I'll sort it all out. So we refinanced everything, undid all the cross securitization. About $120,000 with. We got a bank pre-approval for 3 months, as you do. But at the time, everyone was spruiking North Queensland. So we had looked at a duplex up in Rockhampton and the build and pest was bad with that, so I walked away. I was going to buy a unit in Gladstone, got approval from the banks and everything, and then when it came to the LMI, when they found out the unit was near a train line, they wouldn't give us the money. And it was
you probably dodged a bullet there. 22.
Yeah, I'm so lucky.
Yeah, they halved in value basically, pretty much.
So I had about 3 weeks to find something. So I said to PRE, look, what have you got on your books? And they had this, it was just really built in Toowoomba. So I thought, okay, it fits the budget, let's buy it. And it was good because it was brand new. So depreciation and that on it was fantastic.
So I mean, I don't know, I've never used them, but Positive Real Estate, they provide off the plan house and land packages. So what was your kind of lesson from that?
So PRE fundamentally provide education. So that's where I learned 90% of what I know now is through them, through education and through mentoring. Like that, they give you a personal mentor, and I had a fantastic mentor. And after this place in Toowoomba, we looked at options to build. So I was going to build a duplex in Arundel. So, we couldn't afford to go to capital cities at the time. So it was like, okay, well, let's do new. But the banks would not lend to us. You know, we were self-employed. We didn't have a high income, and we just did not service to do any new builds. So we had to walk away from that strategy and just buy existing properties. And I kind of figured, well, do what I've always done, buy the older properties that you can add value to. And that's what I did.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So can you see the slides that we've got up, Anita?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Good, guys. Just double checking.
can-
So one of your
So
things
this
was
a bit of a dud in a way that, looking back, I bought at the height of the market. Like South Toowoomba at the time was all the rave because there was a private airport that had just been built, and all the land, you know, there was being subdivided and people building duplexes and triplexes. But the problem was there was an oversupply. So paid a good price at the time, but not knowing that the market was going to go down over the next few years. Again, this is when I was still learning about the property clock. And so being a brand new build, there's no equity in it. If you're building yourself, it's okay. But if you're buying it already completed, there's nothing in it.
It's already done. You've bought the end product. You haven't.
The equity, the value's already been added by the person who's subdivided
sold it to you.
Hopefully they've made money, but the interesting. Can I ask here? You're buying sort of quite closely located, either in sort of Sydney or in Hobart, sort of centrally located. This seems a bit of a departure from your previous strategy. What was was it budget constraints, or what was the reason it seemed like you were going well and then you sort of changed tracks a little bit?
I love PRE to this day. You know, I'm forever in their gratitude, but this is the one thing that I bought from them that I won't buy again, like listening to what they had on the books at that time. So I kind of just bought it in a hurry. I didn't think about my strategy. I didn't think about anything. It was just like, I've got, what was it, $300,000 budget to spend. I need to find something really quick. And it was there, and I bought it. I kind of didn't really think about it. But like I said, my account, because it was new.
Have you bought anything else off them since?
No, because it doesn't fit my strategy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's all brand new. As I said, I can't buy brand new.
Yeah, because you are a person that adds value to a property and sees it. But if you buy that, it has great depreciation benefits, which is cool. But that doesn't, like, swapping $1 for 30 cents doesn't really make much sense. No. Okay. Cool. Well, that's fun. So we'll go. Oh, actually, let's not go back to the start. There's too many to go back to the start. You've been crushing.
How many
property game?
So next slide, Joe. How I sent it to you in two portions.
That's a perfect time. So we can go and.
We have an ad to play. Hang on, we'll do our ad. Who did I play at the beginning? I need to play Scott.
Scott.
Okay.
Yeah. Jeez.
Oh, hang on.
This live session is sponsored by Scott Agate from Hello House. Scott has created the world's first property negotiation as a service business. So what does that mean? Well, let's think about it. When was the last time you negotiated on anything over $100, let alone a property that is going to be one of the biggest investments of your life? The vendor, they have a trained negotiator on their side in the form of a real estate agent. That's kind of like you stepping into the ring with Mike Tyson after never training a day of boxing in your life. These guys are trained professionals, and that's what they do day in and day out. And this is what Hello House does every single day as well. They negotiate on property to get the best buy price from the real estate agents. Scott Agate, he's the expert negotiator. He has been in this industry since 1995. He owned and operated 3 Bell franchises. Scott was the guy that was teaching these real estate agents all these agent games. He knows all of their tricks. Having him on your side is going to give you a massive unfair advantage and literally save you tens of thousands of dollars. Unlike other ways of purchasing property, Scott's incentives are aligned with you, the buyer, meaning the more money he saves you, the more money he makes, which is what you want. You need to have those incentives aligned. Scott has kindly offered our group a massive discount on the retainer fee for his service. So if you're looking to buy your next home or investment property, click the link below to get in touch.
There you go, mate. So yeah, there's heaps of comments and thoughts. We'll get to some Q&A, of course. So we love comments and questions, so we're not ignoring them. We'll get to them. How many properties in are we? Are we only 6 properties in? We might need to, because we're already over an hour.
We need to go on speed.
4?
Yeah.
Hang on,
No,
we've
we did
talked
more
about
than 4.
Two Tassie
Oh, we-
properties. I think we've done 6. I'm pretty sure
We've done exactly. We did Carrington. We did Townhouse in that weird place. What's it called?
Dynnyrne.
Oh,
Dynnyrne.
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 Silly name. Sutherland. Then we've got Dynnyrne. Then we got Sutherland. You just should have stuck to that. You should have just gone Sutherland, Dynnyrne, Sutherland, Dynnyrne, Sutherland, Dynnyrne.
You know what? Hindsight's a funny thing. Like here you are trading properties. If you actually just did nothing and you held your first couple of properties, you probably have the same amount of equity as if you did nothing. Just we were in a position that we traded at the beginning because we had to upgrade, and then we got to a point of building the portfolio, and then things change.
But that's it. Like you've got to to get to that next point. People weren't in that. People, it's easy to say now, right? But then you would never have been able to buy that Dynnyrne property and that Sutherland property because you didn't sell. So you'd just be like, oh, I bought this one property and I sat on it for 8 years. But it still wouldn't be to the value of what you got to as the end goal because you went through the steps and you built upon it and it got you to that next level. So yeah, it's definitely not a bad thing to sell them. It's easy to look back and say, no, you shouldn't have sold. But no, you've crushed it.
None of this is
and also, buying property is really like it's a big process, and you get really excited, and then you're like, you buy it, and it's like, oh, now nothing, and now what am I going to do with the extra hours that I've got? Now I'm not researching, I'm not processing documents. It's like I want to go again. Yeah.
That's it. But there's a lot of mistakes that happen along the way, or like I said, they're not mistakes, but they're lessons. And so if you didn't have those experiences, you wouldn't have the knowledge to be able to buy the next property or make a good chunk of equity on the next property. So everything's in hindsight. It's easy to say at the time, but yeah, it's only in hindsight that we truly know.
Another saying I like is you're exactly in the position that you're meant to be. So I'm mindful of time. We're already an hour 10. Let's in the second slide deck, let's cover two round. Well, let's do 2 of your favorite from the second lot because I want to.
We can spin through them. Next one was Nundah. So basically, this is where I bought 4 properties in 18 months. So I bought Sutherland.
4 properties in 18 months.
Yeah. What was the rocket that made you decide to buy 4 in 18 months? What was the mindset here?
Because I had a bloody good broker who could manage to make it happen, and he gave me the criteria I had to work with. He said, you need to have returns of at least 5.5%. This is how much money you can spend to get your equity deposits to stretch. So I knew I could buy 3 more properties. So that's why we bought Toowoomba as one, and then Nundah was the next one. So at the time, it was interesting listening to Prue last week, when you asked the question, how did you find the suburbs that you did? And I used to subscribe to API, like a property magazine, and I would read them, and I consider myself quite an intuitive type of person. So I'd be reading the articles, and then these suburb names will pop out at me, and Nundah was one of them, and it was really off the radar. You've got good suburbs around it, like Clayfield, I think, and a few others. I'm not familiar with the Brisbane area, but Nundah came up, and so I was looking there, and again, I like townhouses and duplexes because you haven't got the huge capital outlay of a house. You don't have the high maintenance that you have with a house, but you get a decent piece of land that people still got their courtyard that they can have their barbecue and things. And Nundah's like 5 train stations away from Brisbane, so it was like sweet. So so I found this one, asking price 340. I negotiated down to 320. Again, did the build and pest report. Found out the shower was leaking, so I negotiated another $10,000 off.
$10,000 for a shower leaking?
Well, you need to do the whole bathroom. It was old, but to this day, it actually has never been done. So,
well, that's one thing as well. If you look into like older properties from like the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, well, probably from the 80s and further back, you'll always find like a high moisture reading in the back of the shower because they didn't have waterproofing in it. and all the water leaks through the ground and it slowly seeps in. So everyone always is like, oh my gosh, it's got high moisture reading in the back of the shower. It's going to fall apart. It's like, no, it's all right. Just make sure there's no mold at the bottom and that kind of stuff.
But the vendor doesn't do that.
No. Yes, exactly. This is what we call leverage. Well done. Okay. So
after we bought Nundah, then it was like, oh, where else am I going to buy? And I thought, Gold Coast. We went there on holidays and Runaway Bay came up on it, and everyone, like all these expert property investors say, why do you want to buy in the Gold Coast? It's trash. It's lost money. It's like, nah, I want to buy there. And this is when I did buy a house, but we had to buy it at 70% LVR. He couldn't get us the loan with a high amount. So it's like, okay, we'll pay a bigger deposit. I want this house. Yeah. And it was a deceased estate. I found out from the real estate agent, and this is when you don't have a good real estate agent, it works in your favour. He said to me, well, Daddy just died and the kids are getting some free money, so why don't you put in an offer? And it was like, okay. And I thought, well, what's a decent price? You know, I don't want to insult anyone, but I thought, okay, I'll come in 10% under, and then I'm sure they'll come back and negotiate. You know, I was expecting that. And he rang me the next day. And he said, congratulations, you just bought a house.
My favourite type of agents. So you've got here, owner did not die in the house. Is there a story to that?
Well, I think it's important.
Superstitious about things like that.
Yeah. I think there was a question in the forum probably a week or two, maybe a month ago. I don't know. All the days when you're in Oz, probably they just go into one. But somebody asked that question, and there were some interesting responses about you need to notify, there are X amount of things you need to do when buying these kind of properties. You need to do a special clean, I believe. I almost purchased a house where someone passed away, and they ripped everything out. Like, I was buying an empty shell of a unit. There was no kitchen. Like, they took the kitchen cabinets out. Like, literally absolutely everything was gone, and then they cleaned it and sterilized it and stuff like that. So I think that was for a special case. But so okay, cool. Well, what happened on this one? A good rental manager can organize trades for renovation. You are renovating yourself, and then all of a sudden you realize that you can get property managers to do it and help you.
We lived in Sydney, so I bought this is the fifth property I bought sight unseen. So I was at the mercy of the real estate agent showing me some photos and that, and then I got a property manager. And when you're dealing with some companies, rather than just a property manager, they have what's called I'm trying to think of what it's called, but it's like a project manager, and they try and suck you into using their services.
Yeah. Business development
manager. Thank you. And so she said, look, I'm happy to organise the trades for you. I'll walk around, show you what needs to be done. So there was a cracked shower screen. We fixed that. We painted throughout, a new carpet. And we got an uplift in rent and rented it out to a family, and happy days.
Complained about everything.
That was the problem. I thought I'd fixed everything. And then when they moved in, it was like, the stove isn't working, something's leaking, the electricity's not something, there's a hole in the roof, and it was just like one thing after another.
They sound like valid things, to be honest. Not to pick sides here, but the stove not working is one of those ones where I'm like, maybe it should.
Maybe.
Does it cook dinner though? That's the thing.
Where's your air fryer? Where's your 2014 air fryer? I love the kitchen here. So you didn't renovate the kitchen at all? No,
that's the before shots. See up there.
You'll see it later. I'll show you later. So that was the before shots. It'll be in a few slides time. So that property was our investment property, and so what happened was
we'll go in sequence.
So we bought that. Then going back to Sutherland, if you remember that, we sold Sutherland and we bought this as our PPR up in Queensland when we moved up. So that was in Biggerel Waters, and that was the waterfront that I wanted. So we bought it. I actually paid $5,000 more. Shock horror, Joe.
Yeah, look at this. What happened? It's because it's an emotional PPOR.
Well, no, there was strategy behind my madness. It was because I needed 3 months settlement, because we actually signed it on conditional upon the sale of our house in Sydney.
It was a
Now, this guy
substitution
was
of
desperate.
security property.
Yeah, hence we did the simultaneous settlement. But like he had it on the market for a year, starting at 950. So he was desperate to sell. And he knew the Sydney market was hot. So he thought, okay, this is a fair deal. She's giving me more than what I wanted, like $5,000 to compensate him for the interest for 3 months of settlement. And I went and sold our house. You know, I had it on the market and sold within 5 weeks. And then we moved up and everyone was happy. But the property that he left was not in the best of condition. There was dog poop everywhere and, you know, ants everywhere. I don't think he'd done a pest spray for years. And so, yes, I was a little bit upset when we moved in and saw the condition of the house. The air conditioner was half broken. So it was challenging.
Were pre-settlements, because pre-settlement inspections, some states do them. Like in Adelaide, they're not really a thing. In Brisbane, they're more around. Back in the day, were they more prominent or just didn't happen?
We did one and it didn't come up with anything major, but, you know, hygiene and cleanliness isn't something that really comes up on the inspection. And the air conditioning was working, but the fact that the vent was broken and stuck on one way and not for the rest of the house, you know, just little things like that, it doesn't get picked up on. And what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So
but
what?
The story behind that one, sorry, I should add, I flew up in October to the Gold Coast by myself, organised with real estate agents to look at 3 properties, and that was the third one that I looked at and I bought it. When you want something, you don't dilly-dally, you just make decisions.
You just make it happen. Get it done. I love it. Okay.
Went back home.
Can just going back to that one, because the Runaway Bay one plus bigger waters. I've been looking at each of the suburbs. I do this. I like to kind of picture and look at the story of how it's gone. Did you have to sell this one in 2018? Because it breaks my heart a little bit to see that this one's now probably 1.2. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's about 1.2, maybe 1.225. A little bit more.
This is the sad story. After all that work, we moved up to the Gold Coast and our marriage was already, you know, on the rough. And by the end of the year, it was done. So we separated. We stayed living together for a year. So, you know, we were actually in this house for 2 years, 1 year together and 1 year separated, so we could sort out our finances. And part of that process was that we would have to sell this house. Lucky we didn't make a loss on the renovations we did. We had to sell Toowoomba, which we did take a loss on. George was able to refinance to keep Nundah, and he still has that to this day. And fortunately for me, I was able to refinance and keep the house in Runaway Bay, the investment property in Runaway Bay.
So it's not all it's not all necessarily bad. I mean, because that's Runaway Bay is also, I'd say, done relatively well.
Oh, it's done really well.
Runaway in value.
Yeah. So that property I bought for $405,000. So 4 years later, after we separated, I had it refinanced at $515,000. Before I moved in, I did an internal reno with new bathroom, laundry, carpet, paint, you know, just everything but the kitchen, just tarted up the kitchen. And at the time, it was revalued at $560,000. And then I did a huge makeover of the backyard. Like, you know, there was a shed and the Hills hoist. It was a bit of a dog's breakfast in the backyard. So I excavated it all and put in new plumbing around the house with the idea that I was going to do a garage conversion. So I had to put in all the infrastructure of the plumbing in. And that's something that I just did this February. So I took the internal garage and made it into the master bedroom and ensuite. So I took the house from being a 3-bed, 1 bath to a 4-bed, 2 bath.
Oh, that makes a massive difference.
Same roof line. So you're not dealing with councils. You're only dealing with a certifier because of that additional bathroom that goes in.
Yeah. Okay. I tell you what, you do a fantastic bathroom renovation. All the bathroom renovations I've seen that you've done, just love them. Like,
Yeah.
They're all
the one that
walk-in
you did-
showers.
Yeah, the one that you did in like 2006. I was like, this is modern. This is walk in today and you're fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I try to, when I renovate, I try not to follow trend. I just do simple, clean, light, wide and bright. I was doing niches before niches became popular. Now shelves are just starting to come popular. So this ensuite that I didn't put the niche in, I put a shelf. And it looks really, you can't really see it in that picture very well, but it's great. And by having a walk-in shower, you've got this beautiful blank panel of glass and it makes the bathrooms look really big. So, yeah.
So can you talk to me about this garage conversion? Because I'm interested in that. Because look here, 650,000, you spent 50,000, so 600, let's just say 700,000, and it got revalued at 930.
It'd be some market growth in there, but yeah.
Obviously, there's market growth in there, but let's just say grow 150. You've just turned, $50,000 into 150. Like you've uplifted it spectacularly. And that's not necessarily what people think about, right? They think, oh, I'll throw another wall up, but you've converted a garage into it. So yeah, what's the kind of process like? Is it just like literally just throwing up a couple of, like in the picture here, we've got just slats across the garage. What's it look like?
So the garage normally, like especially the Gold Coast, a lot of it is what they classify as flood zone. So the garage was a step down from the main house. So in order for the garage to comply, the floor had to be lifted 150 mil. So basically it got filled with concrete. And so, for me, my objective was to put in a second bathroom because a one bathroom house just is really not functional for any family nowadays. And this house is literally around the corner from the primary school. So it is a house that attracts young families. And so, yeah, it's just a matter of getting the certified to look at things. The fact that I had a carport on the side of the house meant that I still had provision for parking because that's necessary when you want to do a garage conversion. You have to be able to accommodate for vehicles off the street. And I just got lucky to find a builder who was able to do it now. And happy days, it all went really well. So I did all the design and that myself. I just needed to get a drafts person to actually implement like my drawing into the technical drawings in order to submit it to the certifier.
Yeah, okay. And 46 grand is absolutely nothing. Look, you've got the wall. All you have to do is put a wall up, put some concrete down, pop the bathroom in. Well done.
That included all the fixtures, the fittings, the approvals. There was a window that had to be put in for the bathroom. So it included everything.
Did you go into this property with this in mind? Like, did you see this garage and say, hey, I can do this. I can convert it into a four-bedder?
When I bought it, no. When I moved into it, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
and then you just knock a hole. Yeah, you don't even knock a hole because it's just there's already a wall into the garage. Boom. Done.
That's it. And rather than brick the front garage door, we just put WeatherTex board over the front. So next week I'm getting the renderer to come to render the front facade. I can't do the whole house at the moment, and re-landscape, and it'll be completely different from the front. And at the back, there's a really big shed. So that shed, the idea is in the future, because I've got that second driveway, when
Granny flat.
Gold Coast change their rules, I can actually build a granny flat at the back.
So when will they change their rules?
Well, actually, I could build a granny flat today, but I don't have a granny to put in it. So when I say change their rules, I mean, you know how like Ipswich and North Brisbane, you can actually have a granny flat and rent it out. It doesn't have to be of the same family line. I don't know when they're going to do it. Speculation.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is currently the place you're living, or is this rented out? Is it?
This is the place I'm living in at the moment. So, but when I finish the project, who knows? I'll get itchy feet and move on again.
Well, what would something like this? Would this rent for probably 700, or what would it rent for roughly?
I think probably at least 800. The way the market is, the Gold Coast has gone mad. So this garage conversion, I would say, for call it a $50,000 spend, it gave an uplift in value of 100,000. It's just the fact that the houses in the area have just gone mad. Like if you've got a pool, this house would sell for over 1 million. I don't want a pool, so I haven't put that in. So it's just the market here. It's really gone mad.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. What I think
We got a duplex.
we'll
And yeah, lucky last property I just bought
That's the
a
last
couple
one.
of weeks ago. I settled in 2
Oh, really?
weeks.
Oh, March 2022. Here we go.
Yeah, my first property by myself.
What are you talking about? You've been crushing it ever
Well,
since
you know, I don't have a
2001.
husband anymore. I'm on my own now, so you know, it's getting back on the wagon again.
Yeah.
Wow. There you go.
So give us a run through of this one. Asking price, offers over 470 in a hot market. Current market paying 520. So what happened in this one?
So, you know, I was looking at open homes like for a few weeks and all the duplexes were going like 520, 540. And I had pre-approval for 500,000. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And when I spoke to the agent about another property, he said, this one's coming up, but word of warning, you know, we've got some challenging tenants in there. They're hoarders. And so I can't take photos of the property, but we're going to attempt to do an open on the weekend. And I said, well, and he told me the address. And again, I'm a bit, you know, funny woo-woo. Number one, the address is like number 1, which is my birthday, and then 19, which is my lucky number. And then the street address is my mum's name. And I just thought, I'm going to buy this place. Like it's mine. No, I have to. And I actually put in an offer and
Sight unseen.
Sight unseen.
Well, you're just around the corner. I mean, it's if you're in bigger waters, Arundel's just around the corner.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
But outside it looks great. It's inside.
So what was your so you've been told by the agent that it's gonna need some hoarding. It's got some hoarding. I can't take photos. So you just threw an offer out there? What was the offer?
So I put in an offer of 487,500. And they said, we want to wait for the open. It's like, okay, well, you go to the open, but I'm withdrawing my offer because you're not going to use it as bait for the other buyers.
Yep.
And I said, I'll resubmit if I choose to. So I went to the open. I was juggling 3 opens in half an hour. So it was like whizzed in, had a quick look around, whizzed back out again, resubmitted my offer. And he came back to me 2 days later and he said, you're not the highest, but we think you're probably the most reliable with finance because I did put it subject to 7 days finance and build and pest, but I told them I already had pre-approval, which I did. And the other person was a first home buyer and, you know, so forth.
Yes, that is the lesson there. Get pre-approval and get everything set up before you go throwing offers out. Also, another little tip actually that you've done really well there is put 7-day pest and building, because everyone's like, oh, standard 14 for finance clause and pest and building, but put 7. And if you need an extension, request an extension, because it's going to take more work for the agent to relist it. And by the time your 7 days are up, they're just going to accept an extra. They're
already committed. There's already commitment there. They've already gone the 5 days. They're already pot committed. So yeah,
Yeah.
And the broker made it happen anyway, so it wasn't a big deal.
That's amazing though, the rental return. You said it's currently rented. When was the last time they raised the rent on that? At $360 a week, geez.
No, that's happening all the time.
Yeah. It's just not a good landlord and not a good tenant. It's just a bad situation that I think they wanted to get out of it. And, you know, I'm someone who has a good tolerance for risk. So I've taken it on and the bank actually lent me the money with such a low return. So I'm super surprised.
When's the lease expire?
End of September.
So yeah, these type of properties are perfect opportunities for investors, because this is probably current market 520. You've just saved $50,000 because it's got an annoying tenant, and first home buyers don't want to wait until September to get their kick the tenants out and do all that stuff. They want to move in right away. But as an investor, you're willing to just sit there and hold it. I'll take, what is it? The difference between, 140 times by how many months, right? Like barely anything, a couple of like $3-4 grand, but it's giving you 50 grand in uplift. So hats off to you.
And I will add that they wanted me to pay more at $492, which I accepted, but then I did the build and pest and it came up with a leaking shower again. So I negotiated $5,000 off.
Oh, wow. There you go. So they
See,
want
that's
you to
still
pay
good as well.
they want you to pay $497, but then did the person building and got $5,000.
$492, and then I
Yeah.
got 5 off. So
Did you ask for 10? Cheeky things.
$487. I asked for 12. I said there's $18,000 worth of damage around the house. I'll
Yeah.
come down to 12, and they said no, we'll only take 5. And I was desperate. I wanted the property, so I wasn't going to argue.
Yeah.
Well,
So
you're enthusiastic rather than
yeah, get it done, and it worked, and you've already saved 50 grand, and then you got more off. So a duplex. So what does that mean? There's a 3 on one side and a 2 on the other, like a 3-bedroom and a 2-bedroom.
No, they're mirror imaged the same. They're just 2-bed, 1. But what I like
so you bought one side of it rather than the
one side. What I like about the layout of this house, I've ordered a plumbing plan, but if I'm correct, it's got a really big laundry. So if I gutted out the bathroom and the laundry, I could recreate it to make an ensuite and master bathroom. So then it's got 2 bathrooms. So that's a big job. I wouldn't do that now, but at least I know that, everything I do, it's like, what is the potential to add value to this property? And it's not about doing it now. You could do it in 10 years' time when you've got the money, but, how can you add value? And adding another bathroom is gold.
Well, look, it's funny that you say that. Bathroom is definitely a lucky thing for Anita.
That's
right.
Yeah,
I'm getting good at them.
Throw your questions and comments in, guys. Anita has been amazing at sharing her story here. So pop your questions and your comments in the comments below, and we'll get to them.
There's been about 20 or 30 genuine questions. Here you go, lessons. While we're going through some of these,
we've gone through all of that already. I think.
What do you think, everybody? They're usually right. Buy the house. It's okay to buy the house unseen if the numbers are right. Okay. There you go.
I've bought 5 properties without looking at them. Do I recommend that for other people? No. I've got a very high tolerance to risk, but numbers don't lie. So at the end of the day, if you've got a buffer in place, even like I've gone to look at my properties after I've bought them and cried thinking, what the hell did I do? But when you look beyond that, it's just, okay, it's just another challenge.
Do you know the properties I bought?
Sorry?
I've only ever seen one property that the rest I've all bought sight unseen, and there's a couple of them I've never visited. So I mean I don't.
So you've never even visited them?
No. Well, they're in South Australia, and there's one up in the Hunter, which Hunter is pretty easy to get to. But anyway, let's get into questions. What about me? So
Oh, was it? Yeah. Okay. Let's just move on.
So I think this is from. So somebody said, what drew you to purchasing in the Shire? I think I know the answer. And would you still recommend purchasing in that area? So we're not necessarily making recommendations. We're saying, I suppose, the pros and cons of the area rather than. I mean, recommendation is a very loaded question, but. So this is from Lauren, not Lauren Hodson. So what are your thoughts on? Do you still know much about the Shire at the moment?
I try to keep up to date. Maybe my numbers are a little bit out, but fundamentally, like, we couldn't afford to be around that Botany area near the city, so we went south. And south is beautiful. They nickname it God's country because it's near the beach, it's near the bush. The highway is close at hand. So to me, it's a beautiful lifestyle area to live in. Like, I don't like the western suburbs. I would never live there in a heartbeat. Of Sydney. Hate it. Absolutely hate it.
I'm a Westie. Jeez, come on. It's not very nice.
Okay. I wouldn't live there. I made a vow to myself I would never travel more than 20 minutes to my job. And I never have.
There's plenty of employment in Western Sydney.
It's apparently God's country as well. It looks like Sutherland Shire and Western Sydney. You're gonna have some.
All right, okay.
Downtown Hebersham.
God's bought many countries, I guess. But anyway, Sutherland. The only problem with Sutherland Shire is the council had put plans in to run the main highway up from Wollongong through to link up to the airport there, and it still hasn't happened because the government's put all the money in the infrastructure into the west and the north. So that's one of the problems, is there's so many units that have been built in Kirrawee and that now, and the traffic is quite chaotic. So trying to get out is a challenge. But, I think it depends on your circumstances. If you're a family and you like the green living and a bit of extra land and that, I still think the Sutherland Shire offers all of that. And that's why you get all the Westies who come over to Cronulla Beach, because they don't have that where they are. And they're not going to go over to Manly or to Bondi. They go to Cronulla.
It's a very good point.
They go
Yeah.
to Port Hacking Water to take their little tinny.
Or they jet skis. Well, jet skis going to Georgia. So this is from MH King. I don't know how much you know about the Adelaide market, so you may not necessarily know. But what are your thoughts on? I mean, I've got an interesting view on not necessarily Adelaide, but just in general. But what are your thoughts on this question about? Do you think it's FOMO or property clock? I mean, I don't know about this property clock anyway. Go on.
For me, the property clock is a reflection of cycles. Everything works in cycles. We've been living through property cycles. You know, they've been charting it for like 120 years. Adelaide only recently went up. So, example, if you look at Hobart, that's been going up for quite a while. Sydney's been going up for quite a while. Adelaide's probably only just sparked up in the last 2 years or so, I think. If I had lots of money, I'd actually buy somewhere in the south of Adelaide. I've been looking at places like where Joe's been, you know, shopping around. I have a few.
Did I tell you where I've been shopping around?
some of the suburbs I've picked up, and I have a friend who lives in Adelaide, and he told me. So,
do you? You got a friend?
He's married, but he's not. So,
there is some good buying going on in Adelaide for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Fear of missing out. I think for me, because I like to make money, when I buy, I think the Adelaide market is quite hot, and you just have to be really lucky, like I just was with this place, this duplex that I've just bought on the Gold Coast, because the Gold Coast is hot too. If you're lucky to find a property that, you know, has some value add potential to it, and you can get a decent price, I think there's still some heat in the market. But for how long?
Yeah.
Not long.
Yeah.
There's some good opportunities. One of the things that I like is identifying the opportunity for the market. So like there's markets that I'm buying in for doing subdivisions, right? Where we're doing a splitter block where you do, what's it called? A battle axe, right? You can pop a property, boom. In Adelaide, there's certain suburbs where you can do a 3-bedroom property and a 4-bedroom property. The disparity is like 150 grand. So if you can buy a 3-bedroom house and do exactly like what you did, Anita, turn it into a 4-bed, 2-bath, 40 grand, and all of a sudden it's 150 grand worth more. This is some of the suburbs that I'm identified in Adelaide that are perfect for those type of things. You should buy that. That'll be your next.
I guess one thing that everyone has to realise at the moment, and I love doing a reno, and I'd love to do another 3-day blitz, you know, and beat Cherie Barber at it, but trying to find tradies at the moment is bloody impossible. Yeah. So if you want to add it as a add value strategy to do in 1 or 2 years' time, and the property is rentable as it is at the moment, it's a great way to park your money, you know, for a future thing. But if you're buying a property that needs a reno tomorrow in order to rent it out, it's just not going to happen.
It's a bit tough. Yeah.
It's really tough at the moment until the market cools down, which, you know, how long is that going to be? Who knows? But let's call it 2 years before it gets to a point where the tradies are starting to free up a bit and be available to do that. So it's a balance between strategy versus the actual practicality.
Yeah. And I think back to one of my deals. I bought a property, paid $280,000 for it, did a renovation, got it to 360. So that's, wow, great job. Good job, Joe. But then it's now 360, year and a half, 2 years later, it's now 580. So it's like renovations are fantastic. They give you that boost, but it's like holding it. Time in the market is what definitely gives you that long-term growth. Here's a great little question that's popped up. Thanks for sharing. And I echo those sentiments. Fantastic. This has been a fantastic story.
Can I just say, I would caution people need to temper their expectations on what the next 12 to 18 months and even beyond that's going to look like, because I mean, I did a post about this the other day and I was somewhat surprised, but
what'd you say?
Maybe not so much. I was just sort of saying, because I got a couple of calls off real estate agents saying, oh, look, was I in the market to buy? You probably didn't see that one. And it was echoed from people around the country sort of saying, yes, they were getting calls from real estate agents saying, did they want to buy it? So I think we're sort of heading into a slightly more balanced market. So I'm not saying that's all across Australia, but if people are thinking they're going to get sort of 20 to 25 to 30% of whatever it is in the next 12 to 18 months, I would just say that, I don't know. That's been a crazy kind of explosion of growth. So just be mindful that things are destined at some stage.
Everything's going to slow down eventually, but when? I mean, example, look at Hobart. You know, my dad had property and I said to him, oh, you better sell soon. And of course he didn't. And thank God he didn't, because, you know, Hobart's been going up for 6 years. Now, that's unprecedented to have such a long property cycle. But is it cooling off? Yeah, I've spoken to a few agents down there and they've all said, you know, not as many people coming to the open homes. We're not getting as many offers. We're actually having to go and start door knocking, letterbox dropping and things like that to list and
do their job. All right, poor thing.
And that is a reflection of what's happening in the Gold Coast too. You know, 6 months ago, I couldn't have done what I just did 6 months ago. It was just the fact that, you know, the market has cooled. So where's it going? Have a look at your historical charting. You know, I have my theories, but you know what? When's a good time to buy a property? Now. Because I look at my dad, you know, bought years and years ago, 50 years ago for, you know, $50,000 for a few thousand square meters and just sold it for $1 million. So just for holding on to it for 50 years. Not bad, eh?
Not bad at all.
The thing I like is when someone's circumstances allow, because if somebody went out and was putting every their last dollar into a property, and it's just because it's like, oh, I have to buy now. I think it's important to sort of do when you feel comfortable, when your circumstances allow. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit more getting a bit more conservative in my early to mid 30s. I don't know. Maybe I need to get back to younger.
You have to balance risk versus, you know, the reality. And because we are buying in now in such a hot market and we don't know what's going to happen, we don't know what the election's going to give us. If it gives us a Labor government, that's not going to be great. You know, if interest rates go up, yeah, they will, but how much? 1%, 2%, 3%, who knows? And for the people who have not lived in that market before, that's going to be a bit scary. You know, I've seen 6 to 8% markets. And I'm good with my money. I'm conservative with my money. But, you know, if you talk about the average Joe nowadays who's got 2 cars and the LCD TV and private school and a holiday to Bali every year and everything else, and they want to keep a property portfolio, sorry.
If I'm going somewhere, I'm probably not going to Bali. I'm going to Europe. I'm going to America. I'm going to even South America.
Much more expensive than Bali. Bali's very affordable.
Yeah, and I could go to Bali for a year.
You're going to have to sell your LCD TV and your VCR. No, I love it. Anita, thank you very much for covering all this. This has been a great story. This has been just a great story, an investor story. This is what we live for. This is why this group was created, for people like you, helping the group and helping us understand what the process was and what it looks like. And you were talking about risk there, but the way I've kind of thought about your portfolio is you say your risk, you've got a high tolerance for risk, but you just have a way of reducing that risk massively by optimizing it, by getting $50,000 off, getting $40,000 off. That just removes all the risk entirely. But yeah, I really appreciate you covering that. That was off. All that stuff off. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Look at people are losing their mind. They're crazy. Oh my gosh. You guys are awesome. Love these weekly lives.
Particularly when Jeff steps off the stage occasionally.
Yeah, last week everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, this is the best session ever." Yeah. No. Is there anything that you wanted to mention, Anita? Because you've had properties, your passion for forever, and now it's a part of your business. How do people kind of get in touch with you, and what's it kind of look like in your business?
Yeah, so I've had a consulting business on people selling their home for about 4 years, and then I became a licensed real estate agent a couple of years ago. And just because of some family issues with my dad, you know, that kind of took a bit of a pause. So I'm getting back into it now that he passed away last year, and all of that stuff is getting cleared up. And so I'm pursuing the path of consulting again, but more from the side of the whole process of buy, renovate, sell. You know, renovating a property, you know, as I've shown, it's not just about the renovation. You don't make money just you might make it back, but there's no guarantee you're going to make an uplift in value. So it's when you have a plan and you start with the end in mind and work your way backwards, you make money when you buy in, then you add value, and then when you sell, you know, you stage and you do all those things in order to sell. So what I've found over the years working with clients is they already have an idea of what to do, but it's like they just need a little bit of hand holding. They need some advice. I mean, I even have a property mentor, and I've been doing this for many years. It's always good to have someone to bounce off. And so that's the service that I offer, the consult, inspect, connect. So, you know, let's have a chat and consult. It's a bit like going to a counselor, you know, tell me your problems and we'll see how we can fix it. And that's what I did for my dad. My dad got in a huge mess financially and legally. And because of the skills that I had, I was able to work with that and unravel it all. And then inspect is about, well, you know, if you've got a property that you're thinking of doing a renovation on, how can I help you? You know, a lot of people can't see beyond what's in front of them, whereas I'm a bit of a visionary that I can walk into a space and straight away I'm knocking out walls and, you know, you can move this over here. And so, you know, I do that. And recently I've had people saying, God, I wish you were around when I was trying to do open homes. I didn't know what I was looking for. You know, could you come to the open home with me and help me negotiate with the real estate agent, because he was a real big bully, you know? And it's like, sure, I'll do that for you. And especially for investors who are interstate, so many people asking, who can I get to look at my property? And, you know, do you trust the sales agent? No. So
where are you based?
In the Gold Coast.
Do you service all up and down? So if I was to look for an investment property in, you know, the Gold Coast, you'd be the lady I'd be chatting with.
I just I dropped some pages, just some details. So your company's called Living Extras. I think you need to get your name out there. Like, so I mean, at least on the live. I mean, maybe not so much on big posts, but no, that's so
Living Extras. It's all about the extra things in life that we do to improve our lifestyle. How can we add value to our house to make it into a sanctuary? Because our home should be a sanctuary that we don't need a holiday from. So all those little things that we can do to add value and make it a happy place, you know, in combining elements of feng shui into it, you know, all those little things. Everyone has different needs. So, you know, I try to...
Tone has asked the question, I'm sorry to interrupt, but do you also source properties or consult on existing? Like, how do people... So sourcing properties, I'm not a buyer's agent. So I'm a done with you service. So if you're a buyer and you know you want to buy in the Gold Coast, you've got an idea of what you want to buy and you want me to go and inspect for you, I will do that. Likewise, you know, if you need me to help you in negotiations, or I'd pass you over to Scott Agate to do the negotiations because he's a master at what he does. With existing properties, I've worked with property investors who have got an existing property and they want to add value, you know, by doing some work to the property to get an uplift in rent. So it's like, okay, let's do a walkthrough together. And how can you add value? And most people are happy to do their own renos. I don't do the reno for you. I don't project manage. It's just simply a consulting. It's like, okay, here's a kitchen. You're looking at a budget of, you know, it could be 15,000, 25,000, depending on the scope of what you want to do. Yeah, you've got a garage here. You can make this into, you know, an extra bedroom, bathroom, that sort of thing. So...
yeah, how can I optimize my investment to get the most amount of money out of it and get the best return for the capital down? Because, absolutely.
And sometimes it's not worth doing work. And I'll tell you so. It's like, you know, just if you want to sell the house, don't go and spend any money, but just do a bit of staging and flick it off. I guess it comes with experience that what do you do with the property?
Yeah, you'll just look at a floor plan and know exactly what to do and how to cut it up. Great, you can put another, exactly like those places in Adelaide. Yep, perfect. This one's a 3-bed that you can't do anything with. Don't bother. Boom, this one here. Yep, this is great. Buy that if you can.
That's it.
Amazing.
Well, thanks very much for it's been great seeing your confidence grow I mean, I think you've always been confident, but your confidence continue to grow in the group, and just the value that you add to the group is fantastic. I think you probably comment more than what I do, and you're an ever present voice, and just somebody. Yeah, it's great to have that as part of the community. So thanks for
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Oh, my pleasure. It's a fantastic group because I do sort of, post on some groups, but you've got a wonderful group where you've got some advanced investors part of it, and they all comment and share their knowledge. Some of the other groups, they're quite newbies, and it's just like, I'm not getting anything from this, but your group has got, it's high level, and I love that.
And we try and keep it respectful as well. Like sometimes people get passionate, but anyway, that's by the by. That's I love passion, but as long as it's respectful.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of real estate. There is no right and wrong. Everyone's right.
Yeah. Everyone's right. Yeah.
Love it.
Thanks, Tone.
Amazing. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Anita. Everyone, have an amazing evening, and let's go. What's that?
Have a great Easter, everybody.
Have a great Easter.
Be safe, and just to spend it with friends and family and all that good stuff. Enjoy maybe a hot cross bun or whatever it is.
Hot cross bun.
People do these days.
Let's go buy a property. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Anita.